Hi, this is Pratik Chogli. I'm recording here from Washington, near the White House. And I wanted to do a video on some of the questions that you might want to ask or consider if you're thinking about writing a book. Now, for basically the past 14 years, I've been helping a variety of people write their books, and I've usually focused on books related to current events, public policy, and also I've also done a number of memoirs, actually. And you know, and in the course of doing these projects, I've also had a lot of conversations with people who are thinking about writing a book. And one of the things I found is, on the one hand, I found that the vast majority of people sort of underestimate how interesting their story is, how much they know, how valuable their expertise is, and they really sort of underestimate the rationale for their writing a book, and the potential market and the potential impact that the right book with their voice on their expertise really could make. And so if you're you know, thinking about it, or maybe if you haven't thought about doing a book, I would definitely encourage you to think about it and not underestimate how much you know and what you can contribute. But what I've also found, on the other hand, is that when people do make a decision to write a book, they tend to go into these projects without really an awareness of just how much is involved, and how much planning has to be done, and just what really goes into bringing a book from idea to fruition. And I think that there are sort of three big decisions that I think any author has to make when they embark on a book project. And sort of thinking about these issues right at the outset will make life a lot easier, and could make or break whether or not the book actually materializes. So I think number one is really asking the question of why you're writing the book. Like, what is the goal, or what is the outcome? And there are a lot of different reasons to write a book, I think all of them legitimate. But if you're trying to write a book with the goal of making it a New York Times bestseller, that's a very different project from if it's more of a personal vanity project that you just sort of want to get out there as a legacy. And that's very different from if you're trying to use a book to build up your business, which is a different project from if you're trying to use a book to really make an impact in a certain intellectual or policy sphere. So really thinking about and reflecting on why you're doing the book and what your goal is a big one. Number two, I would say, is really sort of thinking about how involved you want to be in the actual production of the book. I think the biggest question here is, do you want to hire a ghostwriter and a research assistant, or do you really want to tackle this on your own? And I'll do a different video on the ghostwriting question. I think there are a lot of pros and cons to using a ghostwriter versus doing it yourself, and both ways can work well. But I'll do another video on that. And then the final point here, and this is a big one, is really sort of figuring out how much you want to spend on the book. I found that people tend to have sort of a wildly inflated sense, on the one hand, of how much money a book can make, and then on the other hand, there's sort of a tendency to underestimate how expensive it is to actually get these books written, produced, and then marketed. And you know, I think this is a silly analogy, but I think writing a book is in some ways like planning a wedding. I mean, it's much easier to go over budget than it is to save money. And so really, like, at the outset of a project, having a very clear budget in terms of how long you want to spend on it, how much money, how much sort of manpower and time, and then how you want to allocate your limited resources, whether you want to really double down in producing and subsidizing sort of high quality research, or whether you really want it to go in the marketing. These are all questions that are really important to figure out. So I'll plan to do some more videos on this, but if you're thinking about a book, these are definitely some place to start in thinking about it, and definitely feel free to reach out to me with any questions. Okay, talk to you soon.